Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down.
It has been long overdue to expose the truth that the Democrats and Republicans are sucking the life out of America's liberty and usurping our rights at every turn. Now is the time to seize our civil liberties and take back our individual rights. Here on Southern Liberty, we will expose it all. With his musket on his back, the Declaration of Independence in one hand, and the Constitution in the other, here's your host, Roderick Threets.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your weekend that I welcomed you to on Friday. I know it's coming to a dismal end. I know there's only a couple more hours left in the weekend. But it's okay, though. It's okay, though, because, you know, all good things got to come to an end, but yet we look forward to it in another 6 days. So, you know, we're just going to sit here and have a conversation. Always do. Y'all welcome to Chasing Life, Liberty, and Monarchy, where we have conversations with ordinary folks like me and you about government and different aspects of government, especially the social aspects of government. I think that's pretty appropriate because government is the cause of 90% of our societal ails, you know. So, you know, we if we were to get to a monarchist kind of state, one of the biggest things we have to do is get the government monkey off of our back when it comes to our societal issues and not allow these people to dictate to us how we're supposed to act as human beings. We're supposed to dictate that amongst ourselves within our cultures and ethnic groups in this country, because this country is a beautiful country. There's too many different ethnic groups that have things to contribute. But when government does certain things like affirmative action or They cater certain policies towards certain people, they disenfranchise other people, right? And we don't get the best of all the ethnic groups that are in our country, right? All because of government policy. And one of the biggest ones is their hand in marriage. Their hand in marriage is in many ways is one of the biggest disruptors of the nuclear family, as it is the Western prescribed nuclear family, because government wants to make a profit off of everybody eating every which way they can and get by with it and make you think that you signed up for that. With that being said, y'all know my next guest. She really doesn't need a next introduction because she's the bomb by herself. But I got to introduce her anyway because, you know, y'all know how I do. You know, I get into this a little bit. I get into it real hard, you know. But y'all have heard her on Southern Liberty before. You've heard her when we used to have the Black Round Table on Sundays. But y'all know her as Miss Pinky, Miss Nicole Pinkston. She's kind of branched down and kind of started doing her thing on societal issues, especially when it comes to marriage and family. And she's really making a very big, huge impact with the people she corresponds with. And there's no particular demographic she caters to. She talks to everybody. So everybody out here is saying, oh, she only talks to black people and this, that. That's not necessarily true. That's not from what I have seen, because this issue of marriage affects everybody equally across the board, because the government has their hand in it, and to what degrees and what breaks and things like that. But we're not going to spoil the conversation. So I'm just going to pull back and introduce my guest, Miss Nicole Pinkston. Good evening, ma'am. How you doing?
I am blessed. Thank you for having me.
Oh, always. Miss Nicole, just real quick for the people that have never actually heard you, go ahead and give them a rundown of who you are and where you at and where you trying to get to.
My name is Nicole Pinkston. Most people call me Mrs. Pinky. I am a Christian wife and mother and CEO of Iconic Media. I also have my own podcast, Mrs. Pinky Thoughts, on audio and YouTube. I hail from Georgia. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a combat veteran 2 times in Iraq. And I'm just trying to help reshape the conversation around marriage and help those who ready to do the thing to do it iconically.
So this iconic media, what's the idea behind this iconic media? What's good with that? Tell us about that a little bit. How'd that come into fruition and all that stuff?
So I was actually working with you guys over at Conscious Conservative Media doing the political thing, and I was feeling like I needed to niche down and do something more specific and more localized. So I said, well, Coach does the single woman thing, and I'm a married woman, so why don't I tackle the relationship sphere? It's very toxic, and I don't see a lot of pushback because a lot of people just, mind their business and do their own thing. And, your family is the first government, the first idea of any kind of authoritarian situation. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get into this marriage and relationship space. And so as I was talking with Coach, we developed Iconic, which is my business. And I added the media part because there's lots of podcasts, YouTube content, Facebooks, and all of these other different social medias that go one way when it comes to relationships and describing marriage. So I said, no, I'm making a media conglomerate where I'm going to have ebooks, newsletters, my podcast, audio, all of this under one roof to actually empower men and women to build successful social empires. And that's where we're trying to go over the next 25 years. This isn't something, we just helping people get married and that's it. This is something we want to actually push people to their next generation and to start this new thing with their families where they break in these generational curses and starting anew from there.
That's exactly right. And the thing is when they and we go back in historical context a second when we're talking about marriage, right? And we talk about how the government started issuing licenses based on, I'll call it, people call it racism. I call it xenophobia because that's in essence to the core. That is what it is. It's xenophobia, right? They didn't want, people of brown skin mixing with lighter skinned people, right? That's why they had the marriage license. So they could do a blood test. They could legally do a blood test because according to Jacobson versus Massachusetts, you're already under some sort of ward of the state. So they can say, you got to have a license to get married, but we need to make sure you didn't marry someone of Negro blood, right? So that's how the marriage license comes into play, right? Now, once they started using that marriage, the marriage license to keep people separated, there's another undercurrent that was happening during that time, right? And we got the Loving versus Virginia decision, right? We got the Loving decision that came out of that said, no, you can't bar interracial marriages. That's unconstitutional based on the 14th Amendment. But then we get to LBJ just shortly after Loving, right? Shortly after Loving, we get to LBJ, the Great Society Plan, right? And that in itself turned around and said, okay, quote unquote, black woman, go in the crayon box, y'all. Well, we have to for a second. Black woman, if you don't have a man in the home, we will incentivize that to keep it raw. Am I right, Miss Pinky?
Exactly right.
Right.
And that is how we end up getting the situations that we have now where I'm needed to do what I'm doing.
Well, look, I want to add on to that too, though, right? Because what has happened once they perfected that, then what did they do? Then you got this whole affirmative action bit, right? Which had its minor benefit in the beginning under the guise of helping people of brown skin. But in the end, who did it end up helping? The single white female, right? Now you've broken up another ethnic group's family based on affirmative action in the Great Society Plan. So now you have black folk and white folk alike suffering the same affliction of the government due to started off with a marriage license. That should open a lot of people's eyes to see what they've done. They've turned on, put it in motion in one ethnic group and then unleashed it full-fledged on another ethnic group. And now this whole thing because the big topic today, right, on Twitter was the whole single motherhood rate or the non-marital childhood rate was been a big conversation all day today. And I'm sitting here like, we're not counting for a whole lot of different factors in this, Miss Pinky.
No, we're actually not. And actually, the numbers that people are talking about, whether you agree or disagree with, people's interpersonal relationships, the numbers are actually getting better with marriage across the board, across all demographics, including Black America. But people want to spout the old talking points so they can point to symptoms and problems and not actually offer any solutions.
Correct.
And so
that's exactly correct. Go ahead.
Oh, so like I was saying, a lot of the statistics come out of the 80s, and, we can talk about whichever way you want to go of what happened around the 80s and who started no-fault divorce and who also started the welfare queen statistics and things like that. We can talk about the war on drugs, whichever way you want to dice it up. But when they start to talk about the single motherhood, they want to use that as a symptom of certain communities that they don't even want to do any work in. As we were part of CCM, we wanted to tell people to start doing work in those areas, and then it's kind of falling on deaf ear. So that's why I had to shift a little bit with my energy to get to the actual people and help the couples. And then when I help the couples and the women know their worth and the men know what they're looking for, then maybe we can stop it from that angle. But they don't talk about it across demographics. With the rise of single white motherhoods, they like to specifically point out what's going on with Black people that they are not even really interested in.
That's right. I mean, look, we all know we have this common enemy called the government, and as long as they're sanctioning what is ceremonial law that comes from God, there's you know what I mean. Me and Ms. Kell talked about this on Friday when we were talking about state atheism, right? And how they're replacing what would be God or Allah or Elohim, right? And they're replacing that, or Yahweh, replacing that with government, right? So this is why we have these disparities. Like, we got just as many trailer parks as we do ghettos, right? I mean, and by definition, right? By definition, they're both ghettos. What I'm saying is trailer parks, we got just as many, or if not more trailer parks than we do ghettos. Right? Why? Because of the whole government disparity, and it all surrounds itself around ultimately the welfare system and how that's rigged to keep you either impoverished, right? Or if you happen to find a guy, right, and he's doing well, you lose everything, and then you both end up struggling because if he's not making 70, 80 grand a year, he's not going to be able to support a woman and 2 children, or a woman and 1 child. Let's just say 1 child, right? He's not going to be equipped with a job making 30 to 40 grand a year to allow the woman to stay home and raise a child, right? Unless you're really, really scraping, you're right back in the trailer park in worse conditions. And that's how they rigged the system. You get that piece of paper. Well, guess what? You lose your benefits, but we also, right? It's almost like they put a lien against you, because when you get married, to get that paper, it's almost like a penalty to get married. What do you think, Ms. Pinky?
Oh, yeah, I think it's all, I pointed out to depopulation, and you can see with the push for abortion, you can see with the push for all these different isms. Like, everybody was arguing about the new marriage act that came to solidify gay marriage. And I was thinking the government don't need to solidify anything. I was telling people that we need the government out of the business of marriage. Right. But, that's more anarchy kind of talk. And then
that's not anarchy. That is what a monarchy is, because government, right, at least our form of government and the way our contract, aka the Constitution, is written, it's written for the people to govern the government, not the other way around. Nothing in that Constitution says they get to govern societal affairs. But obviously, right, when they do, what happens? They cause disparities that shouldn't even be there. Or they have to create a disparity to cover up a shortfall somewhere else. And this is what they do. This is exactly how they do. And they come in and they did. I mean, granted, we've seen for the last little bit the marriage rates going up, right? The marriage rate's going up, but the divorce rate is also skyrocketing at the same time. Why do you think that is?
It's literally because of the no-fault divorce. It's really because getting a divorce is so easy. Getting married, we talked about the licensing situation, but the no-fault divorces, and I know why people did it. I know women wanted the power to be able to get out of these, like some people were shotgun wedded and some people were forced with arranged marriages, and just, sometimes marriage doesn't work out. But now, in 2010, New York became the last state that legalized no-fault divorce. And, everybody knows it started in California under Reagan as governor. Yep. So that, because people aren't taking marriage vows as seriously anymore, you're getting all the benefits of being someone's husband and wife without none of the, seriousness behind it anymore. So that's why people are just on their second, third, fourth, fifth relationship.
Yeah, you know what though, and I've always thought this, but I can actually find the data to put it together. But for me, right, this is a deductive reasoning moment for me, right? As soon as states phased out common law marriages, right? The divorce rate obviously went up because now you're having to legalize these people in some shape or form, right? Now, there's a few states that still have common law that if you go to another state and live, you're still common law married because that state has to recognize that. But you can't live in a state, let's say like Florida, and be common law married, right? And they got rid of the common law marriage because it was no benefit to the judiciary or the actual government itself because of the taxation purposes. I mean, that's just a deductive reasoning argument I've had with myself over this. Like, why would they, why would they disenfranchise people that don't want to go and get a piece of paper, right? And I'm speaking more of my religious family, right? And I'm speaking for my Muslims, my Jewish folks, my Christians, right? They understand that marriage is a religious ceremony. You're joined in holy matrimony, not government matrimony, right? But they don't want to go down and get that piece of paper, right? They don't want to. Why do I gotta get a piece of paper to affirm my love to my wife that God or Allah or Elohim has sent to me, right? Why do I gotta put that on paper? But Go ahead. I
don't know. That's why people say, I'm also a business major and running a business, and I'm thinking you can get contracts under contract law if the argument is about assets or heritage, so you can pass down assets. We do that all the time with incorporations and things like that. So I don't buy that excuse that we need our marriage certificate. That's kind of why I was able to get my own. I mean, if I want to be, honest here, me and my husband didn't do everything the Christian way, quote unquote. And we were technically living and doing everything like a married couple. So I was like, why not, why are we not married? And that's how I got my official marriage license. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but that's why I always was like, under God's eyes. That's why a lot of people say, well, I never had a husband. The Lord, I don't know, but the Lord was looking at you a little sideways with it. Number 2. So,
right. And that's any of them, right? I mean, and that's really, if we look at the principle of marriage under any type of religion, whether it's Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hebrew, Judaism, paganism, right? They all preach the same principle of marriage, right? In its basic form. Now, there's the tenets are different, right? For the most part, but they still say, hey, I can only anoint you to be married. That's what they all say, even down to Buddha, even to Tao, right? That's uniform. That's across the board, right? We don't see countries like, let's say, a country like Cambodia that is heavy Buddhist, right? You don't see them running around marriage licenses, do they? I mean, look, let's go to Africa. Only the westernized nations have marriage licenses, like Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, right? But you go to Sudan, right? You go to Congo, Zimbabwe, right? Namibia, Angola, they ain't got marriage licenses, right? Because they go back to either their tribal upbringing or rituals or customs, right? Or they do it before the eyes of God or of their God. And look, how many problems do these countries have besides being democided, right? By some bands of rebels like the Fulani, right? That are demociding Christians, right? For their beliefs. What other problems do they really have in these nations that don't have marriage licenses? Their families stay together, right? I'm just saying. Just some people, something for people to think about a second. What's your thoughts, Ms. Panky?
Well, everything is about the progressivism. It's about the big government needing to mind our damn business and what we got going on. And a lot of the times people want to say, we need 2-parent households, we need this, we need that. And they keep forgetting that that government is in the way. And until we move that boot off of certain communities in the nation, no matter how much, like, I talk about the benefits of marriage, no matter how much we go out there and tell people that they can have a successful marriage, government is always in the way. Like, even if you're trying to grow your wealth, there's going to be taxes to come in there, regulations and rules to make it difficult. Even when you're trying to live and you might not even vote or care about any of this stuff, but you are going to be subject to what the government is trying to do. I can do the social thing all day, but like, I've been doubling this in my mind, trying to uncouple the two, and I'm going to actually speak on this in my own show about trying to talk about just the social issue and leave politics out of it, but you can't.
No, you can't, because the politics part of it is what drives it, and it what really drives people away, right? The majority of people now get married, and I saw something on it the other day. People are getting married later in life for the security aspect of it. And when I mean later in life, I'm meaning after 35, because of the security aspect, right? Of having someone to hold down your estate if something happens to you, right?
Yes, that's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. That's what the data shows.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here, I read that, I was like, what? And I had to think about that a minute. I'm like, you're right. Because I got friends, right, that got married in their 60s. Their second marriage in the 60s. First marriage, I have a friend, her name's Angela. She lives out in New Mexico. She just got married last week, 64 years old. First marriage. But she's been with the guy since they were 20. But because of the way the government, right, and the estate tax and all that stuff, she didn't want her stuff just to go to the freaking wayside, right? And let the government claim it, right? Because she wasn't married. So she wanted to leave it with the guy she had built with. And she got married at 64 years old.
I mean, and that's the thing, like, because people don't understand how much government is intertwined in this stuff, they end up starting to beg government for more government. And what I mean is, I'm not really into the LGBTQ aspect of marriage, but one of the reasons why they were fighting for marriage is to be able to spend their last days with their loved ones, to be able to share their love with them, to be able to see them if they were dying in the medical, to be able to share benefits. None of them could get it because gay marriage was illegal. Right. And they had to actually ask the government, hey, can we get married so we can have these benefits? And I think that was always the wrong question. We should have been always wondering, why can't somebody just see somebody else in the hospital? Or why can't somebody else give their essence to, like, their brother, sister, cousin, whomever they want to, do this to? So they actually had to go fight for rights that they shouldn't have had to fight for to begin with, even if that's not a setup that I personally approve of. That's not my business, and it shouldn't be the government's either.
Right. That's exactly correct. And I've always said, right. And even still, right. Even when we're talking about the gay couples getting married, it's still civil unions. They don't actually recognize it as a marriage. They recognize it as a civil union. What does that tell you? Right. Right from default. Right. That is telling you that marriage in their eyes is also a civil union. So now let's break that down. Civil meaning societal, right? And it's in an unabridged form, right? It's a societal ritual. It's a quote unquote with religion, right? Religion is a societal cultural aspect. They're just, again, like we said, and I know we're beating a dead horse, right? Government is capitalizing on that aspect of religion and societal norms, right? So this is why they keep people ignorant, right, on probate and contract law, right? Because really, in essence, if you put your assets in a trust and you make your partner a beneficiary, you're really doing the same thing a marriage license is doing.
Yeah, that's why I was confused about us having to go to Congress and get these marriages solidified. It's not between us and the government or whether or not we love one another and want to spend the rest of our lives with each other. But what government is doing is making it difficult for us to do the things that we want to build with our own individual families, like I was talking about, building wealth and things like that. And that is why people will say, well, I'm voting for this side because they support this type of marriage, and they're asking the wrong questions. And that side is the one that's actually growing government that's in your business.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, right. Those same people say, I don't want government in my bedroom. I don't want government on my body. But you turn around and ask them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you can't do both. Right. Like, figure out the other aspect to get to that point. Don't have them pass a law to do that. Now, you know what? My thing is like, I was fine, right, with case law, Obergefell, right? When it came to that, Obergefell was perfect, right? It set up the interpretation, right, under the 14th Amendment, which basically used the Loving decision as its backup, right? This is what you got. It don't matter what it didn't matter because of ethnicity with the Loving, right? With Loving, you can't, it's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional to discriminate because of sex, right? I mean, I think the Civil Rights Act kind of solidified that too, right? You can't discriminate based on national origin, creed, race, or sex. But now we got to make it a law, right? Which goes into the other thing before we go into go pay some bills here real quick. The whole thing right now going on in Tennessee. Right now in Tennessee, there's a it's fleeting my mind right now. I just had it on top of my head. I'm getting old.
Are you talking about the age law or or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, we had the age one already, right? We've had that conversation, right?
Okay.
Because people don't understand. Oh, they can let kids marry at 14. No, a kid can't go get married at 14. A kid cannot enter a legally binding contract at 14. Right? And again, that goes back to people not understanding contract law, the basics of contract law. You're not you can't not sign anything legal until you are 18. Children at 14 just can't run off and get married. And that's what people say. This is what the Tennessee legislature was doing. No. If the parents wanted their child to get married, they would have to basically sign the contract for them to get married. And here's the thing. It's not a new concept. It's not nothing brand new. They did it during the Great Depression. That's kind of where it all started. You know, young women, 13, 14, getting pregnant, right? They'd marry them off to 17, 18-year-old, right? And that 17-year-old went to war, didn't he? It's not new. That people, they act like it's something new or it's like immoral. And it's like, yeah, but you're asking for the government. Again, you're asking for the government. Oh man,
People don't understand they don't need the government to say that something is bad or we shouldn't be able to do something. You don't need the government to ban what your children are looking at on social media. You could raise your children to not looking at something on social media.
That's it. And just like you said at the beginning, right? Just like you said at the beginning of the half hour, right? The first form of any type of government you have in your life is the family unit, right? I mean, your family is the definition of a dictatorship. Ain't no democracy in a family. It is a dictatorship. And it's kind of funny how I hear all these people that are communist, right? They're communist, right? And they sit here, it's like, yeah, I don't like fascism. Your parents were fascists. By default, your parents were fascists. Did they let you do anything you wanted to do all willy-nilly? No. And if you did, what happened? Got your ass whooped. What? What's the difference? Seriously, what's the difference? I mean, you experience fascism at a very young age. You experience a dictatorship. Yet, I don't know many 3-year-olds running a household on democracy. No, wait, let me, Ms. Nicole, I got to take that back. Because, look, we hear cheering all the time. People say, well, little Timmy wants to choose. He wants to be a girl. Wait a minute.
Oh, no.
So your house is a democracy. So your kid runs the things, right? Now, that same parent will see them. Remember, Maury and Jenny Jones? You remember the
yes.
show? And what would be the main show 2 or 3 times a week? I'm scared of my 9-year-old because you set up a democracy in your house. You let that kid run and walk all over you all day long. And look, watch this, Mr. Cole. And this is going to be it. I don't care how this comes out, right? And you wonder why a lot of the men don't hang around mannish ass children.
Oh.
Did I say that out loud?
You sure did.
I'm just saying.
I mean, if we're going to go there, I mean, that's what some of these women do. They say their sons are the man of their house and all kinds of other backward stuff. That's why I'm working to get us back to some common sense order everything. I mean, because that's why everything is so crazy. No, I said it the other day, someone talking about their child told them something and they followed their child's lead. Yeah, your child gonna have you running right off a cliff because they're children.
Yep.
No, they follow your lead. You lead your household. The husband is the head and the wife is right there behind him. And y'all get in y'all child and y'all supposed to be leading and guiding them. That's why they so confused right now and don't know what to do with themselves because they don't have no guidance.
Right. And for the single mamas out there, look. You unfortunately under whatever circumstance you found yourself in, you are not only the woman of the house, you're the man of the house too in the same aspect. You got to you have to carry that weight, right? For whatever reason, the guy was a flake or what have you, whatever the circumstance is. I don't care what the circumstance is, but at that point in time, you are the man and the woman of the house, and you can't relinquish any of that control to another child. You can't relinquish that because then what happens? And we see this all the time in Black Americanness, Nicole, right? Like you said, the 9-year-old boy thinks he's the man of the house. He thinks he's just going to run up on any man that runs up in there. Wait a minute. No, you ain't. You a child. I understand looking out for your mama, but at the same time, you a child. Right. And you need to stay in a child's place, not try to run some 35-year-old man like you running this house at 10 years old. Right. And unfortunately, Miss Nicole, and if I'm lying, I'm flying. And if I am, call me out for what it is. But you get these mannish 10-year-olds that get out here and be fast in the streets. Thinking they men and women at 10 years old in these streets. Swinging gats like they professionals, huh? Am I lying?
Nope. And then we have all these situations where people are going to go to government and say, somebody do something. Do something.
Hey, in this particular instance, gun control.
Oh, Lord.
What? Look, Look, y'all know how y'all know I call a spade for what it is, right? This is where we are. We got to pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to sit here and chill out with Miss Nicole for another 25 minutes and do the things. We're going to talk about marriage, government, and how we kick these mudsuckers out the way. So y'all sit back, get some cheese, wine, and crackers. And we'll be back here in 5 on Chasing Life, Liberty, and Monarchy.
Reports now there could be a second leaker of classified documents. I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. The report from the Wall Street Journal creating more questions for the Pentagon. Republican Congressman Mike Turner, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee on CBS's Face the Nation.
From the 9/11 Commission, we learned that we needed to more widely disseminate classified information so that people had actionable intelligence that they could piece together puzzles. Clearly, we've gone too far. And where we have an instance where someone in Massachusetts who's looking at documents with respect to war plans in Ukraine.
Senator Lindsey Graham on ABC's This Week.
Some people need to be fired over this.
The Journal saying a retired Navy petty officer used her clearance to steal information. The U.S. Embassy in Sudan says American citizens are strongly advised to remain indoors and shelter in place until further notice as deadly infighting continues in Sudan's military-controlled government.
The UN Secretary General is calling for an immediate end to the hostilities in Sudan, though both sides appear to be prepared for prolonged fighting. The World Food Program says 3 of their employees are among the dead, and we do know multiple civilians have been killed. The United States, Russia, and China have all issued similar statements urging military leaders to de-escalate the situation, but so far there is no indication the calls are working. Now, neighboring Egypt and South Sudan say they are working to try to mediate the situation, and they have offered their support to both sides to come to the table. So far, that is not working, and the region does fear the fighting could spread to all of Sudan.
Fox's Trey Yingst. Scary moments at the Texas Capitol building in Austin with a bomb threat this afternoon. The Austin Police Department received a call from an unknown person claiming to have placed a pipe bomb at the Capitol. Troopers and explosive canine dogs searching the Capitol while people inside were evacuated. Texas DPS says so far nothing has been found. America's listening to Fox News.
Tax forms can be like one-stop shops for ID thieves. It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity during tax season because so much sensitive info is together in one place. LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but this tax season, make sure your identity theft protection starts here. Join now and save up to 25% off your first year at LifeLock.com/Fox. That's LifeLock.com/Fox for 25% off.
Maryland is stockpiling abortion pills while it can under the direction of Governor Wes Moore, the decision following the Supreme Court's temporary hold on banning the pill. Governor Moore on ABC's This Week.
Maryland is going to be a state where we are going to protect reproductive health and reproductive rights.
The pill, mifepristone, was approved by the FDA more than 20 years ago. Recent legal challenges aim to have it banned at a federal level. New York State may ban foreign adversaries like China and Russia from buying farmland. Fox's Nate Foy.
China owns over 380,000 acres of U.S. farmland, more than quadruple what it did 13 years ago. New York State Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara is the author of a new bill that would ban foreign adversaries from buying farmland in New York.
We're seeing red and blue states enact or consider similar bans. Why is this a bipartisan issue?
I think when it comes to national security, I think keeping our country safe, whether that is a spy balloon or buying up a farm like this, I think that you'll find that Americans want it to be a bipartisan issue.
Right now, 16 states have bans in place, with 15 more considering one.
Bans are being put in place with growing concerns about America's vulnerability and China's spying operations. For example, the recent balloon incident. NASCAR returns to the pavement today for the NOCO 400 at Martinsville Speedway. Fox's Tim McMaster has the recap.
Kyle Larson was the heavy favorite to win on the dirt a week ago. With his history of dirt dominance, it didn't happen when he wrecked late in the race. Today, he was on a track he's never won at in Martinsville.
What a comeback. Kyle Larson continues the Hendrick dominance at Martinsville.
Larson's first ever win at Martinsville is the 28th for Hendricks Motorsports, the most by any team on any track. It's 2 wins in 3 races for Larson as well. Joey Logano finished second. Martin Truex Jr. was third.
I'm Ann Carrick. And
do you want to know what's trending now? You can defer payments of a full NetSuite implementation for 6 months. No payments and no interest for 6 months. This is a big deal. NetSuite by Oracle has never made an offer like this in its 22 years as the leading cloud financial system. 33,000 companies have already upgraded to NetSuite, gaining visibility and control over their financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and more. Everything they need to reduce manual processes, boost efficiency, build forecasts, and increase productivity across every department. In fact, almost 90% of finance leaders agree that NetSuite helps them reduce manual data entry time. Whether your business generates millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, take advantage of this special financing offer of no payments or interest for 6 months at netsuite.com/Fox. That's netsuite.com/Fox. netsuite.com/Fox.
Welcome back to this second half of Chasing Life, Liberty, and Monarchy. We're here with Miss Nicole Pinkston. We talking about government and marriage. And you know how we do. We talk solutions always in the second half of shows. We always talk solutions because that's what solves the problems. That's what solves the problem. So I'm gonna go to Miss Nicole because she's got all the answers. I got nothing. I got nothing. But
I don't know about all that stuff. I got a little bit of something, but
you got a little something. You got a little something.
I got a little something.
So I want to ask. So with your iconic media and the outreach you're doing, surrounding marriage and relationships, things like that. What are one or two of the biggest solutions you're offering people through what you do?
One, I'm offering daily content on our newsletter, just some tips. Sometimes marriage just gets tough, and if you could just read something real quick, it helps you not see that you're alone going through whatever you're going through. And then upcoming in June, we're going to actually put on a 30-day e-course class to actually give people even deeper tips and advice on how to actually understand that marriage is not as complicated as it may seem, and with these tools, you should be able to have a marriage that actually lasts a lifetime or more.
All right, so I guess my question at this point would be, what would be okay? Let me word it like this: what would be your number one piece of advice for people that are engaged, right, or considering getting married? What do you say to those folks?
Okay, my piece of advice is talk often. Know your spouse, know what they stand, get to know their mind, have a mindset of where you guys are going. I always tell couples or people who ask to have a vision and a purpose, because that way you understand where you're wanting your marriage to go, like where y'all want to live, where y'all want to retire, what you're going through. So that way you don't have time to focus on the little stuff that might bother you, because y'all trying to get somewhere. Y'all trying to make a certain dollar amount so y'all can retire early, or y'all trying to put your kids in a certain school, or y'all trying to live in a certain area, or trying to travel a lot. Whatever y'all dreams and goals are, you got to have a vision, and usually the husband is the one who leads that vision, and then the wife is the mate that actually helps foster that vision. And once you have that vision, you really don't have the time to be looking at other people or thinking about somebody making you feel good today. You really don't got that kind of time, because life is short. And when you're working towards a goal, you got to hit those numbers, and you got to hit those added, things that you're trying to get going on. I hope that I answered that.
No, you're fine. So because here's another thing that we see too, right? Especially with men folk, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of men folk deal with a lot of emotional content daily, right? And they have a tendency to, hold back their feelings, right? Regardless of, their deep feelings, right? I mean, they'll profess, right, that, they love their woman or they like somebody, et cetera, right? But then when it gets to those deeper emotions, the ones that hurt, men have been programmed not to talk about those things, right? They just, by nature, they clam up because they've been emasculated in the social sphere, in the social space, right? And look, I'm victim of that. I'm a man, right? I'll openly admit that 100%, right? And you just get into this mode where it's like when you deal with certain things, you just shut down. I don't want to say shut down, but it's more on the line of, okay, I have to do it. It's like for me personally, it's that thing is I don't understand what I need to relay, right? Because I'm that analytical, right? I just can't blabber something out there and say, oh, blah, blah, blah. No, I need to understand what I'm going to present and what I'm saying. And sometimes it takes me a little bit to understand where that's coming from, or, what's the stimulus behind it, so I can relay it and explain it without sounding like I'm in left field on a bullhorn, right? But some men completely all together just. So I think my question should be, what would be your advice to women folk when they're dealing with a man that is kind of dealing with that?
Well, I would say personally, because me and my husband are actually different, and we actually were friends long before we actually ventured into any kind of romantic relationship. So to get to your question, I would venture to know the man you're dealing with and understand and have some grace that men are not built like us. Like women who have their fathers tend to be protected and taught and cuddled, and we're encouraged, and we brought up under the safety net. Men are not designed like that. I'm a combat veteran, and men are more built for action and to be able to push through those emotions so they can win wars and build homes and things like that. So to ask men to then turn that off so that we can cuddle at night might not be the right answer. You have to actually understand that a man is not us, first of all. You guys are not going to just start turning on the waterworks and just, baby, I love you and all this, unless it's an R&B song. So we have to be, my husband always, I ask him these questions because, I'm in this and I want to be able to give advice for the husband and the wife. He says sometimes we have unrealistic expectations. We want to build, I call it like build a bear. We want to build a man to be how we envision him to be, instead of looking at the man we have and then figuring out together how we work with our individual personalities. You see what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh, she said build a bear. I'm done.
Yes.
I'm done with you right now.
This is the only way I can explain it. Like we have a list now. He need to be 6 foot tall. He need to be dark and handsome. He need to be da 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 da. And my dad always told me that, what if God send you this? Or what if God send you a guy with no legs? Or what if God send you somebody like this? What would you do? My dad used to throw those trick questions at me and my sisters to see what our answers would be. Because you never know who is going to be in your path. Like, I didn't notice my husband, and people might call it friend zoning, whatever they might call it. But I didn't notice him at the time. And I was with someone else. And I'm glad that I didn't, because the person I was back then, I don't think it would have worked. And so we women, we tend to have all these lists and ideas. And because of Disney and because of fairy tales and all the books we read, we think relationships work a way it don't work. And we have to tailor Like I always say I'm Mrs. Pinky because Pinky is my husband. You know, I have no idea if any other man would be cool with with this attitude and all this other stuff I got going on. But because he knows who I am and I know who he is, we tailor, you know, our love and our relationship around who we are. And I think women run up against men who are not giving them what they want because, first of all, people only do what they want to do. Okay? So if he's not doing what you want him to do, something to me is missing there. Like, you are his woman, but you also got to be careful not to hold against him his upbringing and things he's been through. Like, my husband didn't have parents together, so he never saw a healthy relationship. So I couldn't get married to him and just assume he knew how to be the best husband ever. You know, that's unfair. That's unrealistic. We had to actually grow into where we're at now. If you would ask me back at year one, we was fighting and stuff.
Y'all so come from fighting in the living room, huh?
We're both. The way he puts it is we're two alphas fighting each other. You know, alpha woman and alpha man. Some people think that's like a good match, but not really, not in the beginning. But luckily we have my parents that'd be like, girl, at least he coming home every night. You got somebody to fight with because he not at the bar right now. You know? And so you have the elders and someone wiser than you tell you, like, this is real life versus what you think a marriage should look like. And that's why I created Iconic, because I want to help people understand that it can happen if you live more realistically and understand who you're marrying too. I'm sorry if that was long-winded.
No, you're fine. You're exactly right. You're, and I think I agree with that because, you know, we have to. We have to be able to, you know, grow individually and then grow together, right? You can't just grow together and stagnate on an individual level because then, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Everything is invested in the intrapersonal and not the personal. Now you start running into problems. You start running into identity problems. Right, when you run into that. And I don't want to go down that vein because that's a very long vein too to run down into. But, you know, like you said, we have to understand, you know, how each other are built, right? And the whole love language thing, I get that and all that good stuff. I understand that stuff. But I think it's getting to more of the core of the understanding part above the rest of that. So we got a couple minutes left. You saw my post on Facebook. I want to get to that one in a second because that's an interesting one right there, right? Because that one's interesting. So those of you that are on my Facebook, y'all have seen this already. If you haven't, you probably will, but and those of you that are not, well, I'm just going to put it on past you here, right? There's a Moroccan footballer that plays for Paris Saint-Germain, right? Which is football over in Europe, right? And his wife is divorcing this guy, right? And the court told her he has no assets in his name. All his assets are in his mother's name. Makes for interesting conversation because I know you saw the responses on my post. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, first when I read it and then you tagged me and then I read it again, I was like, this dude, oh my goodness. So I said I was thinking he was really smart and the court said that he had no assets. And I'm thinking, well, maybe she might try to like garnish his current checks, maybe, but she married him knowing he had assets with his mother. So I'm kind of on like, girl, you didn't prepare yourself in case, you know. But I never like to tell people to go into their marriage thinking about divorce. That's why prenups is I'm gonna have to work in my own brain and maybe talk to other people and see, because I know people want to make sure they're good if the marriage fails. But I just don't like going into marriage with this thought process of divorce. I want people to be in a mindset, which is lesson one of my course of marriage, that we're together, we're in this, and we're going to do this. But wow, he was like, you know what? I'm going to do something. I'm rich, and I can't. be mad at the bro for the game. I'm never a hater of people playing games, especially when it comes to the government and courts.
Yes.
And I've always been saying about men who complain about the courts always doing them dirty is that I want to see y'all fight the courts. Like, instead of getting mad at women because the courts are a certain way, like, I don't have no power in the court. If the court let me do something, that's on the court, Right. I know that doesn't sound right, but that's it's not morally. I know I'm a Christian. I'm not going to.
It's calling a spade, right? Because here's the thing, right? And just some of the comments that were in there. I'm like, you're a misogynist, and wait a minute, skirt. Hold on a minute.
What, Ron? Let me know. I'm about to log. No, let me stop playing.
Look, I'm sitting here. This one gal was like, "You're just a misogynist." And here's the thing. Here's the funny thing, right? Here's the bombshell, everybody. Majority of those derogatory comments were from quote unquote so-called conservatives.
Wait, huh?
Yeah.
Y'all really not trying to hold me, are y'all?
Look, listen at what I'm saying, right? Listen at what I'm saying. Right. Listen at what I'm saying, right? And I'm sitting here, it's like, so now you're using their language and not thinking about what's actually happening here, right? Because look, she went into that marriage, right, knowing that he had nothing in his name.
That's why what questions I was asking you in them comments. Where I was going with I was like, wait, did she know first?
She knew.
And I'm like, that you should have went after another athlete or something.
Right. She knew that his mother was power of attorney.
Ugh.
She knew this.
That power of attorney, that one is not the one you want to try to... Lord.
So the question is, what are you suing for?
How are you a misogynist? Because you telling her that she a good woman and she got it. She be all right.
No, I didn't say it. I didn't comment on it. I'm just reading through the comments, and they were going back and forth, and I'm just like, I'm sitting here like, but the individual, right, already had this set up way before, right? Way before they got married, right? I mean, the dude's making $1 million a month. I mean, look, footballers get paid. Even the low to mid level footballers, especially if you're playing in especially if you're playing the Premier League, right? If you're playing the Premier League, which is in England, right? You play in Liga 1, particularly, or Bundesliga, right? You're getting paid, right? At least $250,000 a month, basic contract. This guy's making $1 million a month. You hear what I'm saying? He's making $1 million a month. So he needs someone to manage his cash money. His mama manages cash money.
Well, they just probably mad because he found a loophole in the system. Somebody going to petition and mess that up for the rest of them that might try now.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, right? Morally, is she entitled to anything? Conceptually, yes, but at the same time, right? And people are going to say I'm misogynistic for this, but this is just the open air question, right? Yeah, for people to really sit back and think about this a second, right? What did she contribute to the marriage?
You making me think of an old Martin joke. When he said she brought a sack or something to the relationship.
Oh, geez, I know what you're talking about. Oh my God, you just did not go there. No, you didn't.
I did, there. And I'm mad.
Oh my God, you went there.
I'm so scared. My mind went there. But Gosh. See, if she didn't marry him after, if this was something he pulled like 2-3 years after they were married, to be like, all right, he like making his escape. But she signed up for this, girl. I'm having a hard time. The female lawyer's gonna be like, we don't know what to do for you, girl. Like, I don't know, use his last name to build your company up or something. Like,
right? Because here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? They got
it doesn't
married.
matter how we feel emotionally about it. This is legal. We talking.
Right. So, they got married in 2020, and here's the skinny. I didn't reveal any of this. Here's the skinny. Right. Okay. They were married in 2020. Right. And this guy is facing sexual assault allegations. Right. So his wife decided to file for divorce last month. They have 2 children together. Okay. In all of this. Okay. Here's the problem. Here's the problem I see in this, right? And I'm gonna call a spade, and this is kind of just leaning off of this whole marriage bit, right? But we have to understand, right? And this is the point I was trying to make with quite a few people, right? Especially our Trump supporting friends, right? I said, y'all sat here and defended Donald Trump through all these sexual assault allegations, right? All of them. And I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? Rightfully so, right? Because you can't say, oh, he did it. No, you got to wait and see for the facts to come out. Mm-hmm. Well, the same people are hollering that, oh, he must have sexually assaulted her, sexually assaulted that woman. That's why she's leaving. Wait, hold on, skirt. People have to understand, when people are, these high profile people get lied on all the time.
They really do.
They get lied on more than what you people think they do. That's why a lot of them, you don't see them out in public. You know what I'm saying? You don't see them doing like, just not even in the community like they used to be in some cases, because of the allegations. Oh, he brushed up against my nipple. I'm suing him for $200,000. Like, people don't want to deal with that. Right? So for people to say that she's divorcing him because of the sexual allegation, I think is very disingenuous, and it's a flip flop on people's principles that said that that's why she's doing it, right? But again, they have 2 children, right? So the children should be supported outright. Period. There's no way around that, right? Mm-hmm. Now the question is, when it. Oh, wait, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. More is coming across my screen about this. Okay, no, it's not. Okay. I was kind of reading while I was talking to you at the same time. In this article in the Arab Times, they're saying, unfortunately for the Spanish actress, Hakimi protected his wealth better than any prenuptial contract could have. The Spanish actress, she's an actress, may actually have to cover the footballer's legal fees in their divorce, because with nothing to his name, she is worth more than him. Wow. Damn. Talking about, wow.
Oh my goodness. That's what I was talking to you and asking you these questions, because it don't matter if we think it's misogynistic or not when it comes to the law. That's why I keep saying about uncoupling in politics from marriage is very difficult and almost impossible. Man, oh man. And she walked into this knowing that he did this?
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the other piece too. And here's the other piece we have to think about too when we're talking about this, right? Again, people want to apply the American standard.
Yeah, true.
Right? And mind you, right, this guy, this footballer, he's Moroccan.
Okay.
Right? He's a Moroccan guy, right? So, which automatically puts, it's a whole different ethnic group and how they act. So we can't impose what we believe in Western culture to be moral and apply it to them, right? That's unfair. That, you know what I mean? That's kind of like, it's the same argument that we talk about all the time, right? Where you can't apply the definition of racism today to yesteryear. Speaking of the founders, right? We can't apply that. And the same applies here. We can't apply the same thing across the board because we live in a different type of culture than they do. And it will be very imperialistic of us to imply that or impose that upon them and force that hand, right? So this is going to be interesting to watch, right? But this is one of these things like in Western culture, yes, he would be shunned. 100% would be shunned for what he did. Woo. Right? And a court would hold him to account. But it's a good exercise, right? This case right here is a good exercise to understand the extent of government and how far people will go to keep government out of their business.
Yes.
That's the key that we really need to key on, right? How far would people go to keep government out of their business and let him? Who said he's not going to sort his affairs out with her on a personal level? Who says he's not? Right? Who's alluding to that? Right? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things potentially in play here, right? And it's a good mental exercise, like I said, for people to understand like how much government is actually dictated to us and how we should act, right? And how we should put our private life on public display, right? For everybody to see. I thought we had the right to privacy. I thought your marriage, quote unquote, to individuals have a right to privacy. You're shielded. But yet at the same time, you got to expose your personal dealings in your relationship to the public, which is the court, the government, so they can decide on who's owed what and how.
Well, he might be dragged publicly in the public opinion, but I can't. That was a smart move.
Hey, look. I'm saying for all my diehard minarchist friends out here, right? This was the move to keep government out of your business. This was the move. Now, if he does the right thing and says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna shoot you, $250,000 a year," you know what I'm saying, for the next 5 years, 6 years, cool. Right? Let's settle that between us. Let's don't have the government settle it for us, because we know how governments do, right? Especially when it comes to family law, right? We know how they do. The men always get the short end of the stick. Child support, alimony, right? Child custody. They always get the short end of the stick. And that's another thing that's potentially in play here too, right? There's so many, and I don't mean to sound like I'm speculating, but we go by the legal systems of the world, right? And the men always get the short end of the stick in a lot of these things, right? And that's why men like Hakimi do things like they do. Yeah, to us again, right? In the Western world, it sounds very underhandedly, right? But I understand it. Personally, I would never do anything like that personally. But I do understand where that comes from. Morally, I could never do it. It's not fair. But again, this is where how far people will go to keep the government out of their business and have the wherewithal to settle their own personal affairs outside of a courtroom, outside of government. You got any last words, Miss Pinky?
No, I just want to tell people that if they want to have an iconic marriage, they can. And it's possible if you're willing to do the work. I don't have anything else to say, but if you are ready to see what we got going on, you can visit MrsPinkyThoughts.substack.com. and check us out over there.
And that's it, y'all heard of Miss Pinky's thoughts at Substacks.com. Make sure y'all check out Miss Pinky. Check it out, and we'll have the link in the show notes for you, so y'all can go click and go check that out. The things they doing over at the Iconic. Appreciate you, Miss Pinky, for coming on, having this little conversation with us here real quick. And as we always say over here, we got to get government out of our way to have real and true progress, not the government's version of progressivism. Our own progress is dependent upon us as individuals to do what we do best and what's best for ourselves. So until next time, everybody, you already know, be here on Monday for What the Hill. And we're going to probably hit some pieces of legislation if anything's viable. They haven't been doing much in Congress. So I don't know how much is actually out there, but we'll see. We'll see. But we do have a Senate bill coming out of Washington that was passed the Senate the other day that basically allows the state to kidnap your children. We're going to hit that for sure. So, hey, be here tomorrow night. What the Hill, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, life, love, liberty, and happiness. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Southern Liberty Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.bpmg.us or leave a rating and review on iTunes. To catch all the latest from Roderick, you can follow him on social media at manofjustice007. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.